Hello everyone, this is the second in the series of priorities in Sefira, and today we're going to deal with a permutation of what we dealt with yesterday, but a totally different question. And that is it better to count Sefira alone, right when the night begins, or to say it after the late Maariv you go to? So a person goes to the 10 o'clock Maariv, and after Maariv they're going to count Sefira. Is it better for him at 8 o'clock, when it gets dark, for him to count Sefira, get that out of the way, and then go to Maariv later, or not? So this brings us to a very famous question that doesn't have to do with Sefira, but has to do mainly with days like Yom Kippur and Simchas Torah, where davening tends to be late. So davening is going on. Musaf will only start 6.5 hours halachically into the day, which happens to be the time for Mincha. And the question is, what should you daven first? Mincha is more frequent than Musaf, Tadir v'she'ino Tadir Tadir Kodem. But on the other hand, we always daven Musaf on Yom Kippur before Mincha. So what should we do? There is not one, not two, not three, but 4 different opinions brought in Shulchan Aruch on that question. The first opinion is that you have to daven Mincha first. Just like the Arid Klad rule, Tadir v'she'ino Tadir Tadir Kodem, the frequent one goes first. So everyone's going to be fablunjan, saying why are they davening Mincha in the Machzer, which is later, but that is the halacha. That seems to be the first opinion in Tosfos, in Mesechet Brachot, and indeed the Chazon Ish explains that even though in the Beis Hamikdash the Tamid Ben Arbaim, for which we daven Mincha, namely the afternoon Tamid sacrifice, is always after the Musaf that was brought earlier. When we daven, we don't exactly mimic what happened in the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore, indeed, you daven Mincha before Musaf. That seems to be also the opinion of the Hagaot Maimoniyot that he brings in the name of the Maharam. The Maharam was his Rebbe, and he brought to the Maharam this beautiful idea of davening, of course, Musaf before Mincha, probably telling him that indeed in the Beis Hamikdash this was brought before that, and the Maharam says, I don't agree. So, opinion number 1 is, even though it's strange, you daven Mincha before Musaf on Yom Kippur if you get to that time, if your davening goes late. Opinion number 2 is that that's only if indeed there's a need. The Ramah says that that's only in Mincha Ktana, and Mincha Ktana already, the day's about to go, then 8.5 hours into the day, 9.5 hours into the day, then and only then do you daven Mincha before Musaf. But if you get to Musaf at 12:30 in the afternoon, even though theoretically you can daven Mincha, you got plenty of time to daven Mincha later, and there's no need. And indeed, that's the third opinion of the Shulchan Aruch, who says ultimately that only if you have a need, such as you want to eat a big Seudah before Mincha Gedola or a small Seudah before Mincha Ketana, then and only then do you need to daven Mincha before Musaf. But in general, you can daven Musaf before Mincha, based on the second opinion in the Tosfot, in the name of the Ri. The Ri indeed says that only if there's a practical need. And finally, the fourth opinion is better not to do it, but rather daven Musaf first, for a very simple reason. And that is that you're going to make people crazy. Namely, they don't understand. Usually, Musaf comes before Mincha, and all of a sudden we're doing Mincha before Musaf. It's not going to be good for the sanity of the people. And indeed, the Mishnah Bura explains very beautifully that Bishar Yamim, in the rest of the days, people will think you have to daven Mincha before Musaf, and it might be too early, because usually Musaf is not that late into the day. So 4 opinions. One is you daven Mincha before Musaf if you get to that time. Second and third opinion is only if there's a practical need. And the fourth opinion is keep the order of the Machzer. So let's plug it in to our question. Ultimately, we have Sefira that we can do at 8 o'clock. There's no need for a minyan. Do we need to wait for Maariv? In other words, does Tadir v'she'ino Tadir happen even if you don't need it? Namely, if there's a need, then you can of course say Sefira first, like whatever the need might be. You may forget, or you have to leave Maariv early later. But if there's no need, then maybe you can leave the regular order. These 4 opinions would obviously lend itself to Sefira as well. But I just want to add one little knetch to it, and that is the opinion of the Ramah. The Ramah says only if it's Mincha Ktana, not Mincha Gedola. Namely, if Musaf really went late into the day, not Musaf started at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. From this perspective, the question is why? Is it because that's the real time for Mincha? That's the most preferable time that the Shulchan Aruch says to daven Mincha? Or no, practically, since Shkia is coming close, we are worried. So if it's just the practical need, then Sefira can be said all night. There's no reason to say it earlier. But on the other hand, if indeed it's not the practical need, but rather it's the Ikar Hazman, then indeed by Sefira, Tmimot would indicate and dictate to daven it to say it as early as possible. La halacha, the Igrod Moshe, Rav Moshe Feinstein says that just like we, the Jewish people, daven a late Maariv all year, and we're somech on that to eat dinner before Maariv. And ultimately, even if it's a 10 o'clock Maariv, we have no problem because we have a Kavua Minyan. Because in that Kavua Minyan, we also get a daven Sefira, then he says that Tadir v'Sheino Tadir should be kept at all costs, the frequent before the infrequent, and therefore, even if you have a late Maariv, you should wait to count Sefira later.